Hello guys, and welcome to this VHS template walkthrough. I hope you downloaded the template from Reactor so you can follow along. And let's jump right into this. Since we are working in linear, I set up this gamut node and a viewer LUT, of course. And then the first important thing that I want to point out is the use of the scale node. So since this effect is a lo-fi effect, there's actually no reason to process the whole composition in full resolution. So no matter what your input video resolution is, using the scale node and this expression, you always get a 960 by 540 video. So for example, here I have this video, which is a 4K video, and if I pipe it into the gamut, I get a 960 by 540 video again. So let's move on. So I blurred the source video a tiny bit, and I used a brightness contrast to crush the white a little amount, and then I merged these overlay information on top, and I'm using this VCR OSD Mono font, which is available on the internet for free. One interesting thing about this text one control is that I used the timecode modifier, which provides this automatic timecode display. So then I used a lens distortion to distort the source video a tiny bit, and then a luma keyer to actually key out the brightest part of the image, blur it, and merge them on top so that we get this blooming effect on the highlights. And then I added this simple vignette using a brightness contrast, and then we come here to this TV1 node, which is actually the core of the whole effect. And let me demonstrate you the TV node here for simplicity. So the TV node, as you can see, if you play it back, nothing really actually happens. And the reason why is because you need to animate all these controls, and you can do it by using keyframes, or for example by using expression. So if we hop on the noise tab, and if we add an expression here in the random control, simply typing time will give us an animated noise, which is pretty nice. And let's go to the main control. Let me make some room so you better see what happens. So for example, here we can use the amplitude, the frequency, and the offset all combined to get a nice distortion effect. So let me demonstrate what happens when using the amplitude and the frequency, and what happens with the offset. So for start, we can add an expression in the offset, and this time we can type math .rad parenthesis time times 5 close parenthesis, and we get this movement. If we want it to be going the opposite direction, we just do 1 minus, and something else that we can do is actually using modifiers, for example in the horizontal and the vertical controls. So for example here I already have my perturb modifiers set, and I can use them to actually move the these controls a little bit in order to have this effect a little bit more believable. So let's move to the roll bar tab, and let's make the bar visible, and then again we can use math.rad parentheses time close parentheses. Oh, sorry. And this is what we get. So as you can see, we can customize this TV node as we actually want. So let's move to my TV node, and this is how I set it up. Merged it on top of a darknet version of the background, so I get this result. As you can see, this is really nice indeed. And then we come to these displays, which is really interesting, but before going into the displays node, I need to talk a little bit about these static and big static groups, which I'm gonna do right now. So for starting, I use fast noise, and I use expressions and the CD rate to generate this kind of pattern. And this is pretty easy because you just need to unlock the X and Y, and if you set the scale, the X scale to 0 and the Y scale to a higher number, you get these lines actually. And then I use the brightness contrast to make this line pop a little bit, and then I use a second fast noise. I also used some expressions and the CD rate to make it a little bit random, and then I merged this one on top of the previous one using the color dodge apply mode. Then what I did is splitting the RGB channels using transforms, and what I get is this kind of a glitchy look, which is really nice. And then I added this last one fast noise on top of everything. And at last I used these channel booleans to have a solid alpha, and as you can see, that's what we have. Then there is this double scale setup, which is really nice, and I'm gonna explain right now what happens, but I'm gonna use the source video. Let me explain here how it works. Scale. So if I use two scales, and if in the second one I type this expression, which is 1 divided by scale 2 x size, and set both the scales to box. Let's view the scale. Oh, sorry. Dot size. This is what happens. If I decrease the size, I get this pixelated aspect, which is exactly what I want. So if I go back here in my double setup, this is the before and this is the after. This is exactly what I want. And then I added some brightness contrast, color correction, and a transform. And then at last I merged this one on top of this other big static, which is kinda easy. Let me show you. It's just a fast noise with a brightness contrast and a second brightness contrast. So if I merge this one on top of the other, this is our static result. So let's go back for a second to our displace node. And as you can see, I merged the static noise with this background, which has been blurred, and this is the result. So actually I'm using a perturbo modifier on the blend of this merge node, and this is the displace map. And if I see the result, this is what happens. As you can see, it's a nice result. Then after that I added brightness contrast, on which I disabled the red channel in order to get this cyan tint. Then I used this chromatic aberration macro, which I made a while ago. I don't remember if this one is on Reactor. I'm not sure actually. And then I merged the static noise back on top of the video. And the one last thing that I want to point out is this custom tool, which uses the average of the red, green and blue channels as the alpha. Then I use the resize to have the correct size back for our video. And this is the final result. I will probably make a macro out of this setup. So I hope you like this, I hope you enjoy it, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.